Men had made promises to me since I was old enough for them to take notice of me. They offered protection, better treatment, a roof that didn't leak, children born legitimate and fed, safe from want, if I would only be agreeable to their terms. These were the same men who dragged my parents through the streets, and then, years later, returned to my counter with soft voices and wanting eyes, as though time would change my opinion of them. Survival among them didn't require belief, it required tolerance. And I learned early that resistance invited cruelty, while open compliance invited expectation. So I chose a third path. Words without invitation, gratitude without promise, a thank you offered like a closed door. I neither insulted nor encouraged them. I let them leave, believing whatever version of me suited them best, so long as it required nothing further of me. When the Empire reclaimed the territory, the order of things changed. Men with manners and accents akin to my own walked the streets, but the greatest mercy, the one I didn't speak aloud for fear of tempting fate, was that those rebel men stopped coming. They no longer lingered at my counter, mistaking my endurance for interest. I didn't mourn the loss of business built on that sort of attention. Christian Ashcombe's decision to make my shop the centre of his operations in Hearthwick, however, was not something I could refuse. He didn't promise me anything. He only stated what would be done, as if supplies arrived because the world behaved correctly when spoken to properly. There had been no bargaining in his tone, no indulgence, no hunger masked as courtesy. Still, I lived long enough to know that the confidence men wielded so easily often dissolved once it wasn't convenient for them, because faith in oneself proved nothing on its own. Reliability had to be demonstrated. So when I was restocking the bread case the following morning, I told myself not to think of him. Not the way he'd taken in the shelves as though already tallying their deficiencies. Not of how casually he spoke of remedy, as if scarcity were merely an error waiting to be corrected rather than a condition one endured. And certainly not of how respectable he was. How if a man like him took an interest in me personally, it wouldn't be the worst fate that had ever brushed past me. If he did as he said he would be enough to earn my appreciation. A dependable ally was no small thing in a place like this, and a man who could keep his word was rarer still. Should it amount to nothing more than a sensible arrangement, and my business steadied by his influence, I could live with it. I'd survived on far less. I shut the bread bin and reminded myself not to expect anything at all. Anything beyond a professional connection would have to come from him. I would open myself to the possibility with him only once and wouldn't allow myself to go on imagining something that didn't exist. But then a shadow crossed the front window, followed by the low grind of a heavy engine easing uphill. I wasn't afraid of the military lorry parking on the street outside my window. I had no reason to be. The British Army had no quarrel with me, nor I with them. I'd served their men since the day they came, and did so willingly. If anything, they were the reason my doors still opened at all. And yet my pulse quickened all the same as warmth spread through me, because only one man in Hearthwick would send a truck like that to my doorstep. The passenger door opened and a man stepped down. Then 3 or 4 more came out of the back. The constable outside opened the door for them, and one of them said, "Morning, miss," as he moved past me with a crate in his arms. "Careful with those," another called, adjusting his grip on a wooden box as he went by me as well. "Carrying eggs and milk jugs, you are." I remained where I was as they moved around me, box after box carried through my door, decisions made at a glance and executed without pause. Shelves were cleared and repurposed without so much as a glance in my direction. Flour displaced preserves. Tins crowded the space where I kept sugar and tea. My careful order was dismantled in minutes. It bothered me more than I cared to admit, honestly. But one didn't refuse generosity. Not when the shelves had been bare the day before. Not when abundance, however clumsily delivered, stood waiting to be enjoyed. I tried to stay out of the way, cleaning up behind them when I could without undoing their work. It was then that a younger soldier approached me. "Miss," the red-haired one said, carrying a bundle of smaller packages. "Where do you want this?" I lifted the lid, just enough to see what was inside. Clothing folded carefully. Not practical things meant for a shop or a household, but items chosen for a woman, all of it unmistakably personal. My first instinct was refusal, but the second was far more treacherous. "This must be an error," I said, as I put the lid down again. "It can't be meant for me." But my pulse betrayed me as the words left my mouth. These were not the sort of things a man sent for courtesy. They were the kind of offering that carried meaning, whether acknowledged or not. Even if there'd been an understanding between us, especially if there'd been, this was too personal to accept openly. And yet I couldn't help but think that perhaps this was the sign I had been waiting for. Before the boy could answer me, the constable at the door opened it and said, "Good day to you, Captain Ashcombe." And everything in me went numb, as if every thought in my head left me all at once. The soldier in front of me turned to face him, but I stayed where I was, absurdly grateful for the momentary shield of his broad back as I tried to compose myself. I didn't expect to see him so soon or prepare myself at all, and the awareness of it left me oddly off balance. He crossed the room without pausing, his attention never once touching me. One hand came to rest on the soldier's back, firm enough to redirect him, turning him away as though he'd only been an obstacle in the path. "The rest goes upstairs, Sean," he said, motioning to the staircase with a slight tilt of his hand. "Leave it in the hallway so the lady can sort it at her leisure." And the small shelter I'd taken behind him vanished. The soldier left me standing alone with Christian, and there was nowhere left to look, nothing left to busy myself with, and no polite distance to hide behind. I was aware he had arranged it so on purpose, and that whatever he expected from me next, I would have to meet it directly. But I was so flustered that I stepped towards him without quite meaning to, my hand catching at the front of his coat. "Christian." It was a foolish thing to do, and I knew it even as my fingers closed on him, but I didn't let go. "I cannot accept all this. It is far too much. I do not even know how to begin making myself worthy of it." His eyes fell to my hand, all disappointment, as though I had failed some standard I didn't know I was being judged against. And he said nothing as he pulled my fingers free of him. That silence as he released my hand was what made it so bloody awful. The day before, he spoke to me as if I mattered beyond the function I served. But today, his attitude seemed to belong to duty alone. Before he walked through the door, the generosity felt personal, intimate even. And yet, with that single motion, he ripped the ground from under me. I let my hand fall, too aware of myself, and wished I had not reached for him at all. "Your country," he said, "and every man who failed you in its keeping, myself included, owes you a debt for what was taken from you. This is not generosity, it is restitution, and you will accept it without argument." The understanding came all at once that whatever I thought he meant and whatever hope I let myself entertain was ridiculous. So I did what I had always done when men revealed the limits of their kindness. I gathered myself before it showed how much it stung me. "Thank you," I said. He smoothed the front of his coat where my fingers had been, a precise motion, more deliberate than any rebuke. "You need not thank me," he said. "This is your due, my lady." His hand came to my back instead, already turning me towards the stairs as the soldiers began to descend again. "You will find a blue dress and matching shoes in a garment bag, various toiletries as well, everything you need to make you properly presentable." His hand on my back fell away in a shrug. "Not that you require any assistance in that regard, of course. but circumstances like these do benefit from a little extra polish. I sensed movement at our backs as we crossed the room together. When I glanced over my shoulder, more men came in, already at work moving the tables and spreading fresh cloths across their surfaces. The linen was finer than anything the commandant lent me. Far too much for a simple village tea room. I looked up at him, searching his face for some explanation I clearly lacked. "I do not understand," I said. "What circumstances do you mean?" "Go on, my darling," he said, his hand pressing more firmly on my back as he urged me towards the first stair and ignored my question altogether. "I will see to the rest." I slowed on the stairs, one hand resting on the rail as the sounds of the men below carried upward, crates sliding, voices exchanging instructions, my shop being altered without my consent or understanding. And I suddenly became overwhelmed by the sense that Christian was arranging matters around me in ways I did not fully grasp. Still, I turned back and hoped he would ease my worries. He didn't move, only watched me, his expression revealing nothing of what I wanted to find. No reassurance, no warmth, only expectation. His brow lifted slightly, and with a small, dismissive motion of his fingers, he sent me on my way, as if my hesitation was something he'd already indulged long enough. "Take your time. We are in no hurry." I no longer trusted him fully, but his certainty still reached me in a place doubt could not touch, so I turned back to the stairs and went, troubled less by the order itself than by how natural it felt to follow it.